Have you ever wondered if you could forgive someone who abandoned you during the most important moments of your life? This is the true story of Sarah Mitchell, a 32-year-old woman living in Portland, Oregon, and the father who disappeared when she was only 7 years old. It was a cold October morning when Michael Carter walked out the front door of his house in a quiet Portland neighborhood and never came back. Sarah was in the kitchen eating breakfast before going to school. She remembers the smell of pancakes her mother, Jennifer, was making. She remembers her pink backpack leaning against the chair, and she remembers the sound of the door closing for the last time. That day, Jennifer tried to explain to little Sarah that Daddy had gone away, that he needed some time, that things between adults were complicated. But how do you explain to a 7-year-old child that the man who'd put her on his shoulders to watch the 4th of July fireworks simply decided to leave? Sarah didn't understand. She waited, day after day, week after week. She waited to hear the sound of keys in the door, the familiar sound of his car pulling into the garage. But silence was the only answer she received. Months turned into years. Sarah grew up in a house where her father's absence was like an invisible piece of furniture always present, but never mentioned. Jennifer did her best to fill the void. She worked 2 jobs, as a nurse during the day and a receptionist at a veterinary clinic. She was always tired, but always tried to be present. Even so, there were moments when Michael's absence became unbearable. On Sarah's 8th birthday, when all the other girls danced with their fathers at the party, she sat in a corner, watching. At her middle school graduation, when they called parents to present certificates, Jennifer went alone, with tears in her eyes, trying to be strong enough for 2. Sarah learned to build walls around her heart. In high school at Roosevelt High School, she became an exemplary student, focused, disciplined, distant. Her teachers praised her. Her classmates respected her, but few really knew her. She had learned early on that depending on someone was dangerous, that people left, that abandonment was always a real possibility. When she turned 18, Sarah received a full scholarship to study psychology at the University of Oregon. She wanted to understand the human mind. She wanted to comprehend how a father could simply disappear from a daughter's life. During her college years, she dedicated herself to her studies with an almost obsessive intensity. It was as if every book, every theory, every research paper might contain the answer to the question that had haunted her since childhood. Why? After graduation, Sarah returned to Portland and got a job as a psychologist at a community clinic downtown. She treated vulnerable families, children with trauma, teenagers with relationship problems, and in every story she heard, she saw fragments of her own pain reflected. Throughout all those years, Michael Carter was a ghost. Sarah had no news of him. She didn't know if he was alive or dead, if he had formed another family, if he ever thought about her. Jennifer never talked about him, and Sarah had learned not to ask. It was as if he had been erased from existence, leaving only an invisible scar. Then, on a rainy afternoon in March, 25 years after that October morning, Sarah's phone rang. It was an unknown number from Seattle, Washington. She almost didn't answer, thinking it was just another telemarketing call. But something made her press the green button. On the other side of the line, a trembling voice, aged, full of hesitation. "Sarah, it's your father. It's Michael." The world stopped. Sarah felt her blood freeze in her veins. 25 years of silence broken by 3 simple sentences. She couldn't speak. She couldn't breathe. The voice continued, now with more urgency, afraid she would hang up. "I know I have no right to call. I know I was a coward. But I need to talk to you. Please, just once." Sarah remained silent for long seconds that felt like hours. Part of her wanted to hang up immediately, block the number, erase that moment from memory. But another part, a small and vulnerable part, that was still the 7-year-old girl waiting for her father to come back, whispered, "Why? Why now?" Michael took a deep breath on the other end. "Because I'm sick, Sarah. Cancer. Stage 4. The doctors gave me a few months. And I can't leave again without at least trying to explain, without asking for forgiveness." The words fell like stones. Sick. Cancer. Months. Sarah felt a confused mixture of emotions: sadness, fear, and something she didn't expect: concern. How could she be concerned about someone who abandoned her? They arranged to meet in a week. Michael would come to Portland. Sarah didn't tell her mother. She didn't tell anyone. It was something she needed to process alone. During that week, she barely slept. She revisited old memories, flipped through photo albums, tried to find clues about what had gone wrong in that family that once seemed so happy. The day of the meeting arrived. Sarah chose a small, discreet cafe in the Pearl District neighborhood, far from her home, far from the office, a neutral place where she could control the situation. She arrived 15 minutes early, ordered a coffee she never touched, and waited. When Michael walked in, Sarah almost didn't recognize him. The robust and vibrant man from her childhood memories had been replaced by someone thin, hunched, with sparse gray hair and sunken eyes. But it was him. She knew. Something inside her recognized him immediately. He approached slowly, as if afraid she might disappear. He sat in the chair across from her, and for a long moment they just looked at each other. 2.5 decades of absence condensed in that heavy silence. Michael was the first to speak. "You look so much like your mother," he said, his voice choked. "I always knew you'd be beautiful, strong, intelligent." Sarah felt anger rising. "You don't know anything about me," she replied, keeping her voice steady. "You chose not to know." He nodded, accepting the cruel truth. "You're right. I don't know. And that's my fault. Only mine." Over the next few hours, Michael told his story. He talked about how he was lost back then, drowning in gambling debts, involved with dangerous people. How he thought leaving was the only way to protect Sarah and Jennifer. How he went to Seattle, worked in construction, lived in cheap, rented rooms, trying to start over from scratch. He talked about the nights he stayed awake thinking about her, about how he followed from afar through a fake social media account. He saw her graduation, saw when she graduated from college, saw when she became a psychologist, and he felt proud and destroyed at the same time, because he had no right to feel proud. Sarah listened to everything. Part of her wanted to scream, wanted to blame him for every missed birthday, every Christmas without him. Every night she cried, asking what she had done wrong for her father to leave. But another part of her, the psychologist, the adult woman who understood human complexity, saw a broken man before her, a man who carried 25 years of regret. "Do you think dying gives you the right to come back?" Sarah asked, with tears in her eyes. "Do you think because you have a few months to live, I should just erase everything and forgive you?" Michael shook his head. "No, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just ... I needed you to know that you were never the problem. That I loved you. That I still love you. And that I have unspent a single day of my life without hating myself for leaving you." Those words broke something inside Sarah. All the defenses she had built, all the walls, began to crack. She saw, for the first time, not the father who abandoned her, but a flawed, frightened human being who made the worst decision of his life and spent decades paying for it. They met several more times in the following weeks. Michael told stories from her childhood that Sarah had forgotten. He shared old photos he had kept all these years, stained and folded from being looked at so much. He talked about her paternal grandparents, who had passed away and whom Sarah never really knew. Sarah, in turn, told him about her life, about the challenges, the achievements, the moments when she missed him. She was honest about the pain, about the scars, but also began to glimpse something she didn't expect: the possibility of reconciliation. One day, during a walk in Washington Park, while watching the cherry blossoms beginning to bloom, Michael stopped and held Sarah's hand. "I don't have much time," he said softly, "and I don't want to waste what's left asking for something I can't have. But I want you to know that these moments with you, these conversations, are the greatest gift I could receive. You gave me something I didn't deserve, a chance." Sarah looked at her father. She saw the frail, sick man. But she also saw beyond that. She saw imperfect humanity, genuine regret, love that never died even in absence. And in that moment, something changed inside her. "I don't know if I can forget," Sarah said, her voice trembling. I don't know if I'll ever be able to look at you without remembering the pain. But I can try to forgive, not for you. For me, because carrying this weight any longer will destroy me. Michael began to cry, silent tears streaming down his aged face. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for giving me this. Sarah moved closer and, for the first time in 25 years, hugged her father. It wasn't a hug that erased the past. It wasn't a hug that instantly healed all wounds. But it was a beginning. It was an acknowledgement that, despite everything, there was still love. There was still connection. In the weeks that followed, Sarah introduced Michael to Jennifer. It was a difficult meeting, loaded with complex emotions, but necessary. Jennifer, who had raised Sarah alone, who had been both father and mother, had her own demons to face, but she also saw what Sarah saw, a man at the end of his life, seeking peace. Michael spent his last months surrounded by the two women he had left behind. He met Sarah's co-workers, watched her lead a group therapy session at the clinic, with patients' permission, and even helped Jennifer fix the garden fence, something he always promised to do before he left. When Michael finally passed away, on a quiet July afternoon, Sarah was by his side in the hospital. She held his hand as he took his last breath, and despite all the pain, all the lost time, she felt something unexpected. Gratitude. Gratitude for those last months. Gratitude for the opportunity to know her father again. Gratitude for the forgiveness that set her free. At the funeral, Sarah read a letter she had written. In it, she spoke about loss and reunion, about anger and forgiveness, about how people are imperfect but still worthy of love. She talked about how forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, but means choosing not to let the past control the future. Today, Sarah continues her work as a psychologist in Portland. She uses her own story to help other people facing abandonment, loss, and the difficult journey of forgiveness. She learned that forgiving isn't a gift you give to those who hurt you, it's a gift you give to yourself. And sometimes, on quiet mornings, when she has coffee before going to work, Sarah looks at the framed photo on her desk. It's a photo of her and Michael taken at Washington Park, under the blooming cherry trees. Both are smiling, and in that smile, there is proof that it's never too late to try again. It's never too late to forgive. Because in the end, forgiveness isn't about erasing the past. It's about freeing the present. It's about allowing love to exist, even amid the scars. It's about choosing peace instead of bitterness. And it's about recognizing that we are all human, flawed, imperfect, but always capable of change. This was the story of Sarah Mitchell and Michael Carter. A story about absence and presence, about pain and healing, about how forgiveness can transform even the most broken relationships. And perhaps, just perhaps, this story reminds us that it's never too late to reach out. It's never too late to try again. And you, is there someone in your life you need to forgive, or someone you need to ask forgiveness from? Share your story in the comments. Sometimes, the first step toward healing is simply talking about it.